The show starts with a priest teaching a young Lawrence about saints and how they help people. He tells Lawrence to remember this and that it makes him special. As time passes, Lawrence becomes older and takes a boy and his mother to meet Cecilia, the only saint in the town. The boy asks Cecilia for advice to settle a problem with his friend, and she helps him. Lawrence tells the boy's mother that Cecilia is always willing to assist people. Once the boy and his mother leave, Cecilia's true nature is revealed. Lawrence notices that Cecilia acts lazy when he's around but becomes professional when others are in the church. He asks Cecilia why she acts that way, and she dodges the question and asks why he doesn't let her do certain things like cooking or digging. Lawrence explains that he wants to keep her safe, showing that he can be overprotective. Lawrence tells Cecilia he's going to visit some homes in the town, and she asks to go with him. He agrees but asks her not to show her special powers to people. As Lawrence prepares to leave, Cecilia is happy to spend time with him. Cecilia asks the church's angels to reveal themselves to her and requests that they stop following Lawrence because it makes her jealous. When Lawrence and Cecilia meet a woman, a group of children approaches Cecilia and asks for a miracle. She refuses but later surprises them with a card trick, which amazes Lawrence. Lawrence and Cecilia visit a shop owner and see a wedding dress, causing Cecilia to get excited and reveal her true self to someone other than Lawrence. The shop owner explains that many women visit her shop to admire the dress and that she made it for an upcoming wedding. She admits she always wanted a daughter and enjoys talking to girls like Cecilia. The shop owner compliments Cecilia, embarrassing her, and gives her a piece of clothing as a gift, hinting that she may know Cecilia's feelings for Lawrence. Cecilia and Lawrence leave the shop and encounter a cat. Lawrence scares the cat away, and he wishes he didn't have that effect on animals. They return to the church, and a girl named Lily and her mother greet Lawrence with flowers. Lily tells Cecilia that she plans to marry the pastor when she's older, but Cecilia advises against it. Lawrence overhears Cecilia speaking ill of him and scolds her when they're alone. However, he's willing to forgive her if she tells him her true feelings next time. Cecilia admits that there are many things she likes about Lawrence. Lawrence offers to make some of her favorite meals, and Cecilia happily accepts. As they cook together, Lawrence recalls how he found Cecilia in their village and brought her to the church, where she has been by his side since. However, Cecilia often finds herself in dangerous situations, which is why he's always watching over her. The next day, Lawrence tries to wake up Cecilia for breakfast because she slept in. Cecilia invites him into her room and surprises him by wearing new pajamas she received from the shop owner. Lawrence compliments her and calls her adorable, making her blush. Cecilia changes and joins Lawrence at the table for breakfast. They discuss their food preferences before heading out to shop for essentials. Lawrence tries to keep Cecilia safe, leading to some funny moments. After getting what they need, they consider buying ingredients to make sweets, and Cecilia encourages Lawrence to do so. Cecilia expresses her admiration for everything Lawrence does for the village, but Lawrence thinks she goes too far. When it starts raining, they seek shelter. A woman and her friend notice them without umbrellas and offer to share theirs. Cecilia tries to get close to Lawrence under the umbrella, but the rain stops, ruining her plan. However, Lawrence picks her up and rushes her home, creating an intimate moment. Later, Cecilia notices Lawrence sleeping and confesses her attachment to him, vowing to protect him no matter what. Lawrence's friend, Abel, comes to their home and asks if he can work at the church for a while because he didn't enjoy working with the people at his own church. Lawrence is not very keen on the idea, but Cecilia convinces him to let Abel work with them. Abel asks Lawrence about Cecilia's name but doesn't say it out loud. He wonders why no one calls her by her name because it's a nice name. Lawrence leaves Abel with Cecilia to finish some paperwork. Cecilia asks Abel if Lawrence has a girlfriend. Abel says no, and that calms Cecilia. He tells her that Lawrence's true love is the scriptures, not a person. As an apology, Abel hands Cecilia the paper with her name that Lawrence wrote on it. The three of them head to the church, and Cecilia learns that Abel has been to the church before. Lawrence confirms that Abel has visited the church many times and even spent the night there despite being scolded for it. Abel wonders why Lawrence hasn't noticed Cecilia's feelings for him. Cecilia explains that Lawrence sees himself as her protector. Abel goes for a walk, and Lawrence tells Cecilia that this is a good time for her to relax. Cecilia is worried about how her habits will fit with Abel around, but Lawrence questions why she's concerned about how someone else sees her if she's not afraid to be herself around him. Cecilia says she's not worried about how Lawrence sees her because he accepts her for who she is. Lawrence is happy that Cecilia only acts lazy when she's around him because it makes him feel special. Lawrence leaves to attend to some matters while Cecilia thinks about Lawrence's best qualities. We see a montage of Cecilia and Lawrence doing their duties, while Abel doesn't seem to help much. After a day's work, Lawrence assigns Abel some cleaning tasks. Cecilia questions why he's so hard on Abel, and Lawrence explains that he learned this stern attitude from his grandfather. Lawrence gets a severe headache when Abel returns. Abel tells Cecilia that she gave him too much divine protection, and she quickly removes some to relieve Lawrence's mental pain. Abel and Cecilia have discussed the situation further. Abel admits he did everything he could to protect Lawrence in the past. We see a flashback of a young Lawrence and his grandfather. Lawrence is annoyed that he can't play the piano, and his grandfather shows him a newspaper with news about a new lady saint being discovered. Lawrence asks his grandfather if this is a big deal, and his grandfather says it is because more villages like theirs, which don't have a saint, will want her to live there for protection. His grandfather shares stories about lady saints protecting people from various dangers. His grandfather tells Lawrence that he's special. We then see Abel telling Cecilia that Lawrence attracts angels and demons, even though he can't see them. Cecilia wishes she had the power to protect Lawrence from all kinds of danger. Abel realizes that they are a perfect match for each other. Cecilia and Abel confess that they never told Lawrence about his ability to attract supernatural beings. Cecilia mentions that there are many fairies and 4 angels in the church, and Abel points out that it could be dangerous, leading to Lawrence's poor health. Abel came to check on Lawrence's health after receiving many letters about it, but he wasn't too worried because Lawrence mentioned living with someone, Cecilia, who brightened his days. Cecilia tells Abel not to underestimate himself and admits to being jealous of him for knowing Lawrence during his seminary days. Abel promises to bring Cecilia photos from those days next time. Lawrence wakes up and tries a meal that Cecilia cooked. He likes it, but Abel insists that Cecilia also tastes the food, which embarrasses her, and she leaves the room. Lawrence asks Abel why he came, and Abel promises not to reveal Cecilia's presence to the nobles and has no intention of exposing her. Abel asks Lawrence what he thinks of Cecilia, and Lawrence says he trusts and respects her. Lawrence vows to protect Cecilia with all his heart, and they both look out of the window together. Abel returns to Cecilia and Lawrence's church feeling sick after getting caught in a thunderstorm. Cecilia promises to take care of him. After finishing his church duties for the day, Lawrence returns home to check on Cecilia and Abel. He finds them asleep and tells Cecilia a little white lie about the congregation being present to wake her up. They have a conversation. Cecilia notices that Lawrence has been acting stern lately and wonders if he's getting sick. Lawrence reassures her that he's fine but promises not to be stern with her in the future. Cecilia goes to her room to change her clothes. Abel wakes up, and Lawrence asks if he's feeling unwell. The next day passes, and Lawrence prepares many sweets for Cecilia, but she notices that he's acting strangely. Abel confides in Cecilia, saying that he's burdened by guilt, but Cecilia is unsure what he's talking about. He hands a letter to Lawrence from one of their old classmates, mentioning that he regularly meets with them. Lawrence wants to join them but doesn't want to leave Cecilia alone. Abel suggests ways for Lawrence to introduce Cecilia to their classmates, and he leaves them to put his letter away. Cecilia asks Lawrence about his friends, and he wonders if she has a negative opinion of the place after the previous day's events. Lawrence apologizes for showing Cecilia an unsightly side of himself, but she assures him that she would never grow tired of the place as it brings her peace of mind. Later, Lawrence finds a scarf left at the church and wants to return it to its owner in the village. Abel insists on going along because he doesn't want to be alone at the church. In the village, Lawrence tells Cecilia that he plans to go to the person's house on the other side of the river. A fortune teller approaches them and offers her services. Lawrence appreciates her persistence but declines. However, the fortune teller convinces them to accept by explaining her financial difficulties. She reads their fortunes, and then, while Cecilia is near some wood, her cape gets torn and a passerby notices. This person asks Cecilia to go to a shop to pick out something else to wear. Lawrence thinks it's a good idea and suggests that they return the lost item while Cecilia looks for new clothes. Cecilia goes to the shop with the woman. They find attire that suits Cecilia, and the shop owner encourages her to ask Lawrence for his opinion on her new look and why he didn't go to the shop with her. Lawrence explains to Abel why he let Cecilia go with the woman to the shop and what he would do if she met someone handsome. The shop owner shows Cecilia a picture of the person who bought the wedding dress from episode 1 and teases Cecilia about making her a wedding dress someday. She suggests that Lawrence seems happier with Cecilia and longs for a normal family. She confirms that Lawrence never had parents and his grandfather raised him. Since his grandfather's passing, Lawrence has always felt lonely. Cecilia leaves the shop, almost trips, and is saved by a female traveler who is looking for someone. Cecilia can't help her but thanks her for her assistance. Lawrence and Abel run into Cecilia and confirm that they returned the lost item to its owner. Cecilia asks Lawrence for his opinion on her clothes, and he says she looks lovely, making Cecilia happy. Meanwhile, the girl who saved Cecilia asks the fortune teller for directions to the church, and the woman wanting to meet the village's saint, Cecilia, to see what she's like. The girl who saved Cecilia from falling arrives at the church and meets Lawrence and Abel. She apologizes for breaking the door and promises to make things right. She says she has business with Abel because he was supposed to be a home tutor in her town. Abel confirms this, and the girl introduces herself as Hazelita Aldridge. Hazelita reveals that she's the one who sent Abel the letter he tried to burn. Cecilia returns from her 4-leaf clover trip and properly introduces herself to Hazelita. Hazelita didn't expect Cecilia to be the Lady Saint because she seemed absent-minded when they met in episode 3. Cecilia explains that she couldn't find any clovers but found some flowers and wants to make a crown with them. Hazelita helps Cecilia make the crown, and Abel asks if she brought him any gifts. Hazelita follows our group to their house and admits that she wanted to meet the town's Lady Saint after fetching Abel. Lawrence mentions that seeing a Lady Saint is a rare occurrence. Cecilia talks to Hazelita about the great Lady Saint and explains that she is the most difficult one to meet since she lives on Maquila Island. She says Lady Saints like herself are the easiest to meet because they blend in with ordinary people's lives. Lawrence recalls hearing about a Lady Saint who used to live in the town to the west, which is where Hazelita and Abel come from. Abel asks Lawrence to let Hazelita stay for the night, and Lawrence agrees. Hazelita recalls a time when she made a flower crown for the Lady Saint of her town. Unfortunately, that Lady Saint became seriously ill, and Hazelita tried to get help for her. However, someone told her that it was foolish to think a Lady Saint could get sick like ordinary people. Hazelita despises Lady Saint managers because of her experiences, believing they are motivated by greed and fame. Lawrence visits Hazelita, and she asks him about his thoughts on Cecilia since he lives with her. Lawrence says he enjoys having someone to eat with, which surprises Hazelita because previous Lady Saint managers use Lady Saints for their own gain. Lawrence reassures Hazelita that he values Cecilia greatly and wants to see her happy. Cecilia asks Abel if he arranged for Hazelita to meet Lawrence because it's related to the Lady Saint of her town. Abel asks Cecilia if she knows stories about the Lady Saint of Compassion. He reveals that the people in that town treated her like she was beyond human, which led to her dying from an illness. Abel explains that Hazelita was the dearest friend of the Lady Saint of Compassion. After enjoying dinner with Abel, Lawrence, and Cecilia, Hazelita asks Cecilia about the idea of living with a guy alone and nothing romantic happening. Cecilia confirms that nothing romantic happens between her and Lawrence, which Hazelita finds somewhat strange. After some lighthearted banter among the four of them, Hazelita tells Cecilia that if anything does happen between her and Lawrence, she should talk to her about it. Abel and Hazelita leave Lawrence and Cecilia for their tutoring sessions. Cecilia thanks Lawrence for his caring nature. The next day, Abel wishes some townspeople good luck, and Hazelita observes from a distance. She tells Abel that she misunderstood Lawrence and now realizes he is an excellent worker despite his cluelessness. Cecilia stumbles upon a box, and Lawrence says it contains a nostalgic item. Cecilia shows it to Hazelita and Abel. Abel remembers that Lawrence made these items for his grandfather's event in the past, admitting they aren't very cute. Cecilia promises to help Lawrence make them into cute items to change Hazelita and Abel's opinions. Hazelita thinks that the pair is clueless, and Lawrence confirms that the liquid on the items is chocolate. Abel suggests that he and Hazelita leave as soon as they can. But the story is not finished yet. Comment down below you want a next part. Thanks for watching. Lawrence tells Hazelita and Abel that he needs to go on a trip to visit Corinne. He asks if they want to come along with him and Cecilia, and they agree. The group meets Corinne, who is happy that Lawrence has people like Hazelita, Abel, and Cecilia around him. Lawrence asks Hazelita to stay with Abel while he and Cecilia conduct a service for Corinne. While Corinne talks about Lawrence's past with Cecilia, Hazelita takes photos with her camera. Hazelita gets lost in the forest, and Abel goes to find her. Meanwhile, Lawrence offers to make dinner while Corinne continues sharing stories about him with Cecilia. Corinne notices that Cecilia might be in love with Lawrence, which makes Cecilia embarrassed. Lawrence calls Corinne over to help him prepare things. As they look out at the lake, Corinne tells Lawrence she often hears voices by the lake. Corinne heard rumors that the voices came from fairies, so she asked Lawrence's grandfather, Mr. Oswell, to consult with her. She believes Oswell could see things others couldn't, making him fascinating. Abel and Hazelita enter Corinne's home. Cecilia asks Corinne where Lawrence is. Corinne tells Cecilia he went somewhere, prompting her to leave to find him. Hazelita tells Abel she had issues with her camera's shutter when taking photos of the lake. Corinne tells Abel that other visitors don't have issues taking photos of her area. Abel believes something in the lake is preventing Hazelita from taking photos. Lawrence visits the lake and almost trips. Cecilia saves him from falling. Lawrence opens up about his grandfather, his death, and his goal to look after the church to honor him. Lawrence admits he's tried to become more like his grandfather and how challenging it is. Cecilia tells Lawrence that sulking about his failures will waste his time, even though it's nice that he wants to be like his father. Lawrence asks Cecilia about the voices coming from the lake. Lawrence confirms he felt like he was pulled into the lake, confirming Cecilia's speculation that fairies are responsible. Abel and Hazelita arrive. Hazelita scolds Lawrence for his recklessness. Cecilia asks Abel for an iron-made cross to punish the naughty fairies who attempted to harm Lawrence. Lawrence asks Cecilia if he can watch her perform her enchantment. After accepting Lawrence's request, Cecilia performs her magic and asks the fairies to have fun in the middle of the lake, away from people. Lawrence is baffled by Cecilia's power and wonders if this is what his grandfather did. Lawrence and the others bid Corinne farewell and head for their carriage in the morning. Cecilia wonders when the time will come to inform Lawrence about his unusual predisposition. It's now Valentine's Day, and Abel explains the holiday to Cecilia. Abel encourages Cecilia to ask Lawrence to teach her how to make chocolates. 1 hour later, Cecilia crafts a terrible piece of chocolate. Lawrence leaves to get more ingredients and wonders who Cecilia is making the chocolate for. Abel and Hazelita talk about the benefits of Cecilia learning to make chocolate from Lawrence. Meanwhile, Lawrence meets Mel, the fortune teller from a previous episode, and tells her that Cecilia is making chocolates for someone. Lawrence returns home and finds Cecilia has wounded herself with a knife. Cecilia urges Lawrence to let her continue making chocolates, making him mildly jealous. He worries that Cecilia will abandon him for someone she's making chocolates for. Cecilia finishes making the chocolate and presents it to Lawrence. He thanks her and asks how he can repay her. Hazelita and Abel return, and she criticizes Lawrence for his dense behavior. Cecilia is satisfied to see Lawrence express himself in ways she hadn't seen before. The episode ends with a short gag about pressure points and motion sickness. Cecilia decides to help out at a cafe while Lawrence runs some errands. She wants to understand the daily lives of her fellow citizens and hopes to receive praise from Lawrence for her hard work. Lawrence is surprised to find Cecilia working at the cafe when he enters. He questions if she broke something, but Cecilia explains that she's helping because the cafe is short on staff. After observing Cecilia with Mel, the cafe owner tells Lawrence that Cecilia brought in more customers and needs more help. Lawrence decides to pitch in, surprising Cecilia. On their way home, Lawrence informs Cecilia and Hazelita that he and Abel must visit the village for an important matter. He asks Hazelita to watch over Cecilia while they're away. Cecilia takes this opportunity to learn more about Hazelita. Hazelita encourages Cecilia to act more woman-like to make Lawrence see her as a woman rather than a child. Hazelita explains that she's pushing Cecilia to pursue her romantic feelings because she's met lady saints who prioritize others' happiness over their own. Cecilia reassures Hazelita not to worry and asks about her connection with Abel. Meanwhile, a man thanks Lawrence and Abel for looking for his lost son. When Lawrence and Abel return home, the girls greet them with banter and jokes. Abel dreams about his childhood after looking at photos. He shares that he could see things others couldn't, which made people find him creepy. After getting kicked out of his dorm, Abel found hope after meeting a certain person. Abel gives Cecilia photos from Lawrence's school days. Cecilia and Hazelita look through the photos until Lawrence arrives. They ask Lawrence why Abel looks expressionless in the photos. Lawrence recalls Abel being different back then due to the hardships he faced. Abel finds a letter in the mailbox, and Lawrence shares stories about their early connection. Abel hands Hazelita a letter from her older brother, and she writes a response. Before Abel heads to the village to send it, Cecilia thanks him for introducing her to Lawrence. Abel tells Cecilia he's glad she met him because now he can set his sights on someone else. The episode ends with a funny gag about a young Lawrence and Abel. Hazelita finds Cecilia spying on Lawrence, thinking he's keeping a secret. Later, Abel and Hazelita join Cecilia in spying. Suddenly, a fortune teller joins them. They follow Lawrence to a clothing shop, wondering why. The fortune teller notices Cecilia is missing, making Abel and Hazelita panic. Lawrence spots Abel and Hazelita and questions what they're doing. Meanwhile, Cecilia wonders where she is after losing sight of them. The shop owner's son notices Cecilia and takes her to the shop, as she got separated from Lawrence. Lawrence tells Hazelita, the fortune teller, and Abel that he's Eric's home tutor for a while. They inform Lawrence that Cecilia has been spying and got lost. Lawrence asks where Eric is, and he hasn't returned from deliveries. Lawrence tells Hazelita and Abel to wait and leaves with the fortune teller to find Cecilia. Eric tells Cecilia about Lawrence's tutoring job and why he needs it. Cecilia wonders if Lawrence can teach her, and Eric questions her education. They reunite with Lawrence, and he introduces Eric, revealing the home tutor position. Abel and Hazelita leave after realizing the misunderstanding. Eric asks to continue studies later. Lawrence gives Eric a book to read for next time. Cecilia apologizes for spying, and Lawrence reassures her he'd never hide anything to hurt her, though some things must be kept hidden. Later, a postal company drops a letter off at Lawrence's place. Cecilia and Hazelita notice Abel and Lawrence chatting about a meeting letter. Abel explains pastors meet regularly. Lawrence hasn't attended due to looking after Cecilia. She suggests he attends with her. Hazelita was supposed to watch their home, but she's asked to attend too. The meeting is at Abel's church, near Hazelita's family. They arrive with Eric, who represents Rebecca. Lawrence won't address Cecilia as Lady Saint to avoid problems. Hazelita teases him, and he leaves with Abel. Lawrence and Abel meet old friends Hane, Camilla, and Yuri. Abel is asked to discuss abandoning duties. Lawrence visits the meeting room with Han. Pastor Hugo tells Lawrence about a rumor that their church holds a Lady Saint. Lawrence promises to treat her with care. Hugo warns him to keep it a secret due to past tragedy. They meet up with Han, Camilla, and Yuri. Yuri and Camilla take Cecilia aside after she asks for the mirror room's location. They ask Cecilia about her relationship with Lawrence. Cecilia is confused, but the girls are excited, thinking Lawrence might be having an affair with her. Before questions bombard Cecilia, a man orders them back to work. Another man offers to watch over Cecilia. He tries making advances, but Lawrence arrives and stops him, introducing himself as Hazelita's older brother, Giselbert Aldridge. Giselbert notices that Lawrence and Cecilia get along well. Lawrence asks Giselbert to keep Cecilia's Lady Saint status a secret. Giselbert suggests continuing the conversation at the mansion. Everyone visits Giselbert's mansion. Abel and Hazelita scold Giselbert for his actions. Hazelita reveals that Giselbert is the master of the mansion while their parents are away, and he also hired Abel. Giselbert encourages everyone to enjoy their time at the mansion. While they eat, Giselbert talks with Abel outside about Hazelita's progress and relationships. He later asks Lawrence to discuss things about Cecilia and Hazelita over drinks. The next day, Lawrence and Cecilia explore the city alone. They visit a shop, and Lawrence buys Cecilia an expensive necklace, putting it on for her. Cecilia expresses how much she treasures their time in the city. Lawrence promises to work hard to call her by her name instead of Lady Saint. They reunite with Eric, Hazelita, and Abel at a restaurant. Hazelita praises Lawrence for getting Cecilia a necklace. After some conversation, Hazelita spills something on the table, and she and Eric leave for a moment. Cecilia notices Lawrence having head issues. Abel wonders if Cecilia's overprotectiveness is the cause. Cecilia promises to be more careful. Abel suggests reducing her protection, and Lawrence feels better. Abel reveals the garden they pass holds the resting place of Lady Saint Frederica. Hazelita returns and shares Frederica's story, highlighting the difficulties she faced. Hazelita explains that Frederica earned her Lady Saint of Compassion status by easing people's hearts. The wealthy family who brought her to the city only worshipped her for her holy status. Frederica passed away despite efforts to calm the situation. Hazelita and Giselbert attended her deathbed. Lawrence and Cecilia followed Giselbert to the garden. He shares its history and reveals he sent the secret report mentioned by Hazelita. Giselbert tried to take Frederica away, but failed because she didn't want to leave. Giselbert regrets not being able to save Frederica from her tragic fate. Cecilia receives a message from Frederica's grave, conveying that Giselbert and Hazelita should live and move forward. Lawrence and Cecilia rush to Giselbert's side. Cecilia shares the message, and there's a heartfelt moment between Giselbert and Frederica's memory.